What would you do if you came face to face with something lurking in the wilderness that wasn't supposed to exist? In this video, I will be sharing 3 chilling Sasquatch encounters from Alberta, each one based on true events. These stories only get more unsettling as they go on, so make sure you stick around until the very end. This Bigfoot story will have you second guessing when leaving your kids alone near an empty forest. This story takes place in 1980 at Morley, Alberta, and the encounter was caught near Foothill. The Bigfoot here was all seen by the entire family, consisting of 3 kids, a mom and a dad. The story begins by saying, "I told my family I saw Sasquatch and they told me they saw him too. I remember watching a tall, big figure traverse the foothill behind what is now the community school. What struck me at first, it was very large and moved very fast, though it was not running. The figure was dark against the pale straw-colored hill. I knew immediately it was not a human. It was upright and moved on 2 feet. I also remember it had a funny shaped head. In my 10-year-old mind, it was as if he had balanced a cap on the crown of his head instead of pulling it onto his head. It was moving away from us. I don't remember my siblings being with me, so I was so happy that they both said they remember the same thing as I do and verified the experience. They were able to relate more details to their experience a little better because they were older. My sister relates that he was grayish, had hair all over its body, had the oblong head, had no clothes on, and was bipedal and moving quickly. My brother remembers that it was very large, estimating over 8 feet, and again, the oblong head. We all remember that he was traveling through the same location and in the same direction behind the community school towards. I don't remember what day it was or when it happened. It must have been either just approaching winter or coming into spring. The trees were bare, the bush on the hill he was moving on was scarce. There was no snow. If there was, it was small, insignificant patches. We saw him clearly in the daylight. He was not trying to conceal himself in the trees that ran along the river. He did not stop. None of us remember feeling afraid, and all of us knew what it was. We didn't ever talk about it, but not because we were ashamed or scared, but because it was as if we had simply seen a moose or something. If you have any experience with Bigfoot encounters, does this strike you as terrifying or not? Or are you used to hearing stories like this? Regardless, this story is a bit unsettling, but the next ones will haunt you even more. The second story takes place in winter of 1992 between Valley View and Fox Creek, all of which are in Alberta. The story starts by saying, "It was the winter of 1992. I was 19 at the time and had been working the last year and a half doing seismic work all through Alberta, British Columbia, and southern Saskatchewan. We had just got back to work from Christmas holidays and we were working through Valley View and Fox Creek. We were driving into the staging area one morning and it was snowing like crazy, snowflakes the size of loonies, and I was driving the truck at the end of the caravan. It had been snowing so hard all night that the snow had piled up on the spruce trees looking like walls along the tree lines. Being an avid hunter my whole life, my eyes are always watching when I'm on the road and especially when driving in the bush. So we were driving down a cut line to the staging area and I had come out of the bush into a clearing, and from the corner of my right eye I seen a huge black object about 600 yards moving on the edge of the tree line and then dropped out of sight. I instantly pushed my clutch and pointing to the trees, I tell the other 3 guys in my truck, "Watch." About 15 seconds later, a huge black Sasquatch stood up from below the snow line and walks about 5 to 6 steps and dropped down again. The 3 guys with me suddenly all yell, "What the?" And I throw my shift to first gear, cranking the wheels to the right and hammered it. It was plodding through the deep snow and got about halfway when it stands back up quickly, looking right at us, and launches itself into the thick spruce trees. You could clearly see its silhouette left behind as it knocked the snow from the trees. Just then my radio goes off and it's an operator flipping out asking me what the heck I was doing out there with a new company truck. When we got back to him, he asked me again, and so I told him what I had seen. He asked the other 3 guys and they all said I seen something huge and black and drove after it. We're not sure what it was. Looked huge, like a moose. The rest of the day I didn't talk with the rest of my crew unless it was directly work related. That night in the hotel, the 3 of them come to my room and wanted to talk about it. I told them to go away because the time to talk about it had already passed when they almost got me fired for chasing a supposed moose. They all got super apologetic and said to me, "You grow up your whole life thinking it's a story and myth, and then it's right freaking there in front of you. Nobody's going to believe you." I replied that people will believe it a lot more if 4 guys say this is what we seen, not one saying this is what we seen and the other 3 guys lying to themselves. Hopefully they're all friends again after that encounter, because I would also be pretty confused and scared myself, and human psychology points to arguments in these times. Was this story more intense than the last? If not, wait until the last one, because as they say, you save the best for last. The third story takes place in Bow Valley Provincial Park, Alberta, in June 1996. Alex Michelle was the one that wrote her encounter with the Sasquatch in Volume 1, Issue Number 10, in Animal Watch, if you're curious. The story begins by her writing, saying, "My family has always been notorious for doing things at odd hours, and as you may well know, the strangest things always happen late at night. It was an unusually warm autumn some years ago, and at 16 years of age, I had just finished a summer job as an arts and crafts camp counselor. The only thing left to do was to pack up a rather large trunk filled with my belongings. Unable to fit such a large truck inside the VW Beetle I had purchased just a few weeks before, my mother was volunteered to transport it from the mountains back to the city in the larger of the family cars. Summer camp was a very wild place for me, with staff partying every night until the wee hours of the morning. My room was near the entrance of the staff residence where all these parties took place. By late July, sleep-deprived party wimps like myself were weeded out, so I built a single mattress-sized platform in the woods and then covered it with a polyplastic. It was a 15-minute walk through dense forest to get there from the residence or the road. Bow Valley Provincial Park, an undistributed, protected forest, was only a stone's throw away. It is there that my mother, a small dog named Willow, and myself were going to retrieve my trunk at 3 o'clock on a Monday morning. Why 3 in the morning? I could say it was the heat, but it was mostly because my father had not yet been told that the car would be leaving town. There was also my adolescent fear that knowledge of the platform construction would somehow reflect itself in a summer paycheck I had not yet received. My mother had to be at work by 6:30, so we had less than an hour to complete this covert action. As we approached the highway turnoff, a sliver of the moon cast a glowing border around southwestern Alberta's Mount Yamnuska. Driving several miles along the gravel road, the camp looked deserted. Summer staff had cleared out several weeks before, and a handful of permanent staff were either taking days off in the city or asleep in cabins near several miles from the summer campsite. Angling off on the side of the road, my other left the headlights on, pointing into the trees. There was some discussion about taking the 20-pound dog named Willow for protection. However, Willow's track record for wandering off several threatened a successful completion of the mission. Plus, very uncharacteristically, the dog named Willow refused to get out of the car and was now particularly hidden under the driver's seat, which of course is unusual. Car headlights were of no value after the first few seconds of meandering through the forest. We had a flashlight, but I was having difficulty remembering the exact location. The 15-minute walk turned into a 30-minute skin-scraping bushwhack, but finally we arrived at the isolated platform, even though the flashlight batteries were now dead. I assured my mother all that needed to be done was to take down the polyplastic rain cover and carry back a mattress and the trunk. It should only take 2 trips. She was noticeably silent as we began working in the darkness. My mother began untying strings securing the poly to the ground, and I was kneeling on the top of the 4-foot-high platform, stretching up to reach some tangled binder twine knots tied to a tree. A pungent smell suddenly flooded the air. My eyes moved from the knots to the tall length of plastic. There, distorted through the semi-transparent poly, was a huge shadow, only about 7 feet away. With the 4-foot platform and me kneeling on top, the creature was easily at eye level. A split second later, there was an incredibly loud screaming roar, although I know of nothing to describe it. The sound was like a peacock scream, a bear growl, and a lion roar, all somehow combined. I can't tell you if I screamed. I can't tell you much of anything other than my eyes continued to peer through the plastic at this massive shadow. My 5'3" tall mother had somehow leaped into the air and was now on the platform beside me. Whatever it was finally turned and walked slowly away on its long hind feet. We continued watching as each heavy step could be heard contracting the ground. There were no visible ears, just a sparse mohawk, like fringe sprouting up from the tapering top of the creature's head. From behind, the upper body appeared massive. It continued to walk upright until disappearing into the trees. We stayed on top of the platform motionless for some time after. Then finally I started ripping down the plastic. I have no idea what my mother did during the next 40 or 50 seconds, but my next memory was power walking through the forest, balancing a single mattress on top of my head with one hand and carrying the handle of the trunk in the other. I assumed my mother was holding up the other end of the trunk. With Willow still hidden under the driver's seat, it was a very quiet drive home. Late at night, they say that your mind can play tricks on you, but I am so certain. Brown bears had been in the area that summer, but I have never seen a bear walk upright that smoothly or for that long of a time. Or could it have been a very large, long-furred man standing over 7 feet in height. I say man because intuition tells me that the creature was a male. Could it have been a Sasquatch that night? I will never really know for sure, but you can bet that I will keep telling the story as if it were. And there you have it, lovely folks, the 3 stories of Sasquatch based off of key witnesses in Alberta. All of these stories are from Sasquatch, Alberta, and there will be a link in the description if you're interested in reading more stories, but we will cover more in the future as well. Make sure to subscribe and like for more scary Sasquatch encounters, and I will hopefully see you in the next video.